Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Learn Live session on managing tables in Dataverse. My name is Someleza Digo, and I'm a cloud advocate for the Microsoft Power Platform. And today I have the pleasure and honor to be co hosting alongside Homolemo Muhapi. Homo, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So hi there, folks. My name is Homo, and I am a cloud advocate here at Microsoft focused on Power Apps. I'm extremely excited to be here as we dive deep into the world of Dataverse. We have just come off of an amazing week last week. We just had Microsoft Build. We had a lot of amazing new announcements, especially pertaining to the Power Platform. Um, do you perhaps any have like some of like what were some of your favorite announcements from Build?
Yeah, sure. It was a very wonderful week for the Power Platforms, especially since I love the Power Platform so much. So, one
Yeah.
of the most important ones to me, which were really great, is that the announcement of Power Pages and also the announcement of using or being able to create a Power App using Figma. So, obviously, you would have created your own UI using Figma, and then you are able to import that UI user interface into your new Power App. So Power Apps will just take that user interface, create an app for you based on that user interface and the designs that you put in. And another one, which is very great actually, is that you are able to just scribble down on a piece of paper how you actually want your app to look like or the different controls you would want to have on your app. And then after that, you can just take a picture, upload it on Power Apps, and you can actually have your own screens already pre-made for you based on that piece of paper that you actually drew on. That was really awesome for me. So what about you, Homo?
Yeah, no, those were also two of my favorite announcements from Build, especially that Express design because it allows now designers to get going building Power Apps very quickly. And at Microsoft, we speak about enabling creatives to build and to work from the tools that they know and love. So if you're a designer that loves working in Figma and likes to create those designs within Figma, then you are able to import that straight into Power Apps. And like you have said, you can do the very same from a sketch. So many times in business meetings, you are able to just, jot down a quick UI design of what your app might look like. You can now import that into Power Apps as well. You touched briefly on the Power Pages announcements, which where some of you might know of Power Portals. It is now renamed and branded as a fifth standalone product of the overall Power platform, and this is great because now it has its very own identity. So every new feature and announcement that comes up, it will include Power Pages as a standalone product. And I really think that is great for anyone looking to build these low code business sites for external users. Yeah, build was truly great.
Yeah, definitely. Just to also mention as well is that for those who've been wondering for a very long time about the Power Apps or Power Platform logo, now we actually have our own Power Platform logo. So that's something to get excited about. So if you want to talk about Power Platform, reshuffle those slides and actually put right into your slides that logo and say this is what represents the Power Platform. So obviously today we have our session live, and we would like for you guys to actually pop in the chat in the comments and let us know where you're joining from, what time is it, and say hi to our moderator as well. So joining us today is amazing Bruno, who is also a Power Platform extraordinaire. So he will be here answering all of the questions that you actually have. And just to reiterate again, this session is definitely live, and you guys can be able to ask your questions away and they'll be answered by Bruno. So, obviously, you are wondering what exactly we are doing today and what exactly are we covering? Where are we covering it from? Today, we're looking at a Microsoft Learn module that is actually available to you. So everything that we're covering today is available on Microsoft Learn. So this is the Learn module, Manage Tables in Dataverse, hence our session title today. So obviously, what you can do now, you can be able to complete the interactive learning exercises from this Learn module using the URL that you see on the screen, or you are able to actually scan the QR code that you see on the screen. Right. I'm talking about managing tables in Dataverse, and obviously, I'm talking about a Learn module that is a standalone Learn module. How can we actually get started with learning about tables in Dataverse and learning about Dataverse in overall? So, Homo, do you actually have an answer to that?
Sure, I am sure do. So for those who may not know, so Microsoft Learn is a free online training platform that provides interactive learning for Microsoft products and more. So on Microsoft Learn, we have learning parts. So these learning parts are a string of learn modules that relate to the same overall topic. The module that we will be focused on is part of the getting started with Dataverse learning path. And these are the first 5 modules that you see here on screen that are inside of the learning path. They are all geared in making sure that you have a smooth on ramping experience with the Dataverse. So, as much as you would like to go through all of these modules, in this particular session, we will just be going through one, as we have already said. That is the manage tables in Dataverse learning module. So this, while the entire learning path has a holistic view of what Dataverse has to offer, we will just be covering just a few items here as we look through our learning objectives. First, we're going to be talking about how to define tables in Dataverse, and then go on to learn about the different table types that are available to us. And then we also have a just a few demos in store for you to show you how to create a table within Dataverse, as well as walking you through the steps of how it is done. And we're going to also show you how to enable attachments within a table for certain use cases may where you might want to enable your users to attach a file or any type of attachment to specific records. As you may or may not know, there are varying licensing requirements needed for whichever table that you choose to utilize within Dataverse. So we'll have a brief discussion regarding licensing. So with all that said, we are in for a very jam-packed session. And right, let's go on ahead and introduce our very first section.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Homo. So, right, we're talking about managing tables within Dataverse. But first, we need to understand what is a table. At the end of the day, whether you're using a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet or you are building an application that is on top of a SQL Server database, you are bound to use tables within your database or your data source. So obviously, our tables, whenever we are creating all these different kinds of solutions using these different kinds of technologies, we want to store data, and we use these tables to actually store that data. Right. So I'm talking about identifying tables now and table types within Dataverse. How can we actually do that? But before we can actually do that, we need to understand what is a table in Dataverse. Right. A table in Dataverse is a logical structure containing records that are made up of rows and columns. Right. Tables in Dataverse differ from a simple database table because they have nearly over 100 properties that are used to define relationships between other standard tables and how the table is used within Dynamics solutions from Microsoft, right? I give you this definition in terms of what is a table. I wonder really what is the next step for us to actually get into this. We understand what a table in Dataverse is and how can we actually use it. But obviously, with each and every single data source, we need to understand extra learnings around the tables there. So, Homo, would you like to explain to us exactly what's the extra learning that we have to do within Dataverse when we're understanding tables?
Sure. So with Dataverse, it's very similar to other database structures that you may find elsewhere. And if you are familiar with those, you might find this a bit easy to understand. But if you do not understand what tables are, what a database is, then this is a very good module to get you started with learning about how to use a database in any type of app that you might build. So in Dataverse, we have four main types of tables. The first being a standard one, right? These are a base set of tables that are created with every instance of a Dataverse database, right? So when you acquire a license and you configure your Dataverse database, you will find that there is a whole list of pre-made tables there to use so that you can use across varying uh, use cases, right? These are known as the out-of-box tables. So tables such as count, contact, task are just some of the many examples that you will find once you create this instance of Dataverse. These are not tables that you can delete. However, you can add your own columns to these, as you may find that while these examples are common across industries, across businesses, you may want to customize them for your own specific needs or for the needs of your business. We also have a complex type of table. It is a type that contains complex server-side business logic. These may include, real-time workflows or even plugins, and these might be used for a more complex set of use cases that your business might require. Another type of table that we have within Dataverse is the ones that are restricted. So some of the tables inside of Dataverse, you will find that they are quite restricted, especially those that are tied to Dynamics 365 apps, which require each and every user to have a corresponding license for that Dynamics 365 app. This is for if they want to create, update, or delete rows within those restricted tables. This is an entire offshoot into another topic, which is not within the scope of what we're going to be discussing today. But if you do want to know and find out more about the ins and outs of what restricted tables are, then there will be a link provided in the summary section of this Learn module. And then the very last one that we have here are our custom tables, which are usually new tables created directly within the Dataverse environment. You may find that if you have a business that wants to solve a particular problem, you want to go inside of Dataverse and create your own custom tables to suit whatever needs you might have. So any user with the appropriate privileges within within Dataverse can fully create and customize any one of these custom tables, right? These are, again, usually made for a specific business app, one of which may not have, we not, like one of which we may not have thought of again. So we have all those standard tables for you where we feel like, these types of tables might be used across businesses, but maybe there is one use case where we have not thought about, and this is where you can go in and create your own custom table. We do have a few other tables. I think Someleze might want to cover some of those.
Yeah, definitely. I was about to say, we actually have activity tables and virtual tables. So obviously, when we start off with activity tables, the word itself or the name itself is self-explanatory. So they actually look at when an activity obviously is any action which can be entered on a calendar and has a time dimension. So, for an example, activities that have a start time and a stop time or due date. So, these would then help determine when the action occurred or is to occur. So, obviously, like I said, activity tables store all of these activities that you'd have within your team. For an example, if you have a project due or you have a project start time, that's when you can actually use that activity table. Right. Now, we also have virtual tables. Virtual tables. Right. Virtual tables enable the integration of data residing in external systems by seamlessly representing that data as tables in Microsoft Dataverse without replication of data and often without custom coding. So obviously it takes away from that whole configuration and administration that comes with all of those system customizers for administrators or system customizers where they have to actually maintain and create those tables. Virtual tables actually just simplifies that administration and configuration. Right. So obviously we've been talking for quite a while now, and I'm just going to hand it over to Homo. He has something very interesting for us.
Yeah, I think it's time for our very first knowledge check. We've spoken a lot about the types of tables within Dataverse, and I know we have all this information coming in. It's best to actually see this in action. But before we get into a bit of demos, let's do our very first knowledge check. Let's see what some of these questions are.
Yeah. So obviously you can vote for this question or for the answers to this question using the poll. You see the link on the screen. So the question is, which table type is not a part of Dataverse? Right? So Homo, do you actually know the answer to this? I'm thinking around restricted or complex. I think we have actually mentioned this, some of the explanation when you were talking about table types.
Yeah, no, this is I mean, it could be an easy or it could be a difficult question here because some of these actually make sense. Well, I think all of them make perfect sense. But if you're really focusing on what we were talking about, the answer might be quite apparent there. So the first one we have standard. Standard sounds good. It sounds like a type of table we might have inside of Dataverse. B, complex. That also sounds like something that might occur within Dataverse. You know, the name or the word complex really explains it for you there. And then we have options C and D, which is open and restricted. You could argue that these are opposites, and they can both be a type of table within Dataverse. You never know.
Yeah, definitely. So, obviously, I'm dying to actually know the answer to this. Again, I just want to reiterate, even in the chat, you can actually answer this question using the poll. Which table type is not a part of Dataverse? Normally, whenever I see questions like this, I need to be able to read it and understand it properly because sometimes the words get twisted whenever you are asked that question and you think that answer is correct and sometimes it's not. I've had those situations before.
For
So
sure.
yeah, definitely. So let's jump right and see what's the answer. Wow, it's
So
option
the
C.
answer is C. Open is not a part of the Dataverse. It seems like everyone who voted actually got that answer correct. Let's just break this down and see why that is the correct answer. If we look at standard, we must remember that standard are the base sets of tables that are created inside of an instance of Dataverse. Be complex. That is a type that contains complex server-side business logic. So that's also a type of table. And D, we have those restricted ones. Those are the ones that are tied to Dynamics 365's apps, where each user needs to have a valid corresponding license to access. So the answer here is definitely open. So congrats to everyone who voted correctly on that.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely wouldn't have thought about that, but now that is really an eye opener. Right. So we have this knowledge check. It was really jogging our memory to see if we're actually following along with the session. Obviously, you might be asking yourself, what is the next step from this? With all of this information that we have, what is our next step? Right? We spoke about what exactly is a table within Dataverse, and also we mentioned the table types in which Homo just touched on even when we were doing our knowledge check. Right. We have the ability to actually create a custom table within Dataverse, as Homo had mentioned a few slides ago. Adding a new table to a Dataverse database is very simple, right? And you might actually have a tip up your sleeve where when you are creating your custom table, to make sure that you always verify that the functionality of the table you want to create already exists in standard tables listed in the summary of this learn module, obviously. Why am I saying all of this? The reason is because you don't want to be duplicating tables where you're creating a custom table, but there's already a standard table that actually does the exact same functionality. So rather you do that first check, and then if you find that there's no table or standard table that really meets your requirements or the functionality that you want to do, then you can carry on creating your custom table. Okay, that's the next step, to create a custom table. But I'm wondering, is there any additional information or additional capabilities that come with creating a custom table? Homo, do you have an idea? Could you advise us on, really, do we have other capabilities or not?
Yeah, sure. There's a whole bunch of options and ways in which you can customize your specific table for your business need. And one of these is to enable attachments. So you might want to allow users the ability to upload files and save those files within any row within that table. So Dataverse tables allows users to add an attachment by turning on that property when you're creating a table. So yeah, I guess we've been talking for quite a bit. I think it's best for us to move on over to Power Apps so we can see exactly how to create a table and enable your attachments. So as you can see on screen, we are at the homepage of our Power Apps. You can reach this by going to make.powerapps.com. And of course, we haven't really spoke about licensing yet. But if you do want to try out some of these examples within the Power Platform, Power Apps, Power Automate, and other products, or you want to just find out what it means to create apps using the Power Platform without having to actually pay for a license, there is the Power Apps Developer Plan. So this is a plan for you to add an existing dev in environment for you to play around with Power Apps, to play with premium features as much as you want before you actually go about and build and deploy actual apps within your business. As you can see, this Power Apps developer plan comes with a Dataverse environment. So fully managed, scalable, Azure-backed data platform that allows you to store data, to run your model-driven apps. For example, this free or this developer license allows you to play with that before you make the decision to create or to buy an actual license. So I'm in my account here using that dev plan that I've just shown you. So I already have Dataverse configured there. So if you're on the home page and you go to the left hand side, where you see Dataverse. It's right there. Under Dataverse, we see the word tables. So we can just click on tables there. And then what that will do is that will launch up all the tables that you have within Dataverse. Some of these, like I've said, you might see some that says account, you might see address, you might see business unit. These are all the standard tables that we have within Dataverse that actually come with the environments. So you don't have to create any of these, they're already there for you. But if you want, you are then able to customize them and add your own custom columns as well. So what we'll be doing now is we will be going in and creating a new table. So let's click on new table here. And then what we will do is we will just walk through some of these features or some of these properties that we have when we're creating our table name. So we have the display name. So we'll call this um, let's get the right case. We'll call this the assets order. So this is just a table used for employees who want to order new work devices, something simple. So that's the display name, the name that we will usually see in our Dataverse, and it's easy to read for regular users. Then we have the plural name. Now, the plural name is a column which is auto populated once you write your display name. But of course, I can change this back to this. I can change it back to that. It's just a name that shows up in other parts of the platform when you want to reference this particular table. We also have the description. This is just a place for you to describe what this table does. So we can put in something simple, like saying for assets ordering, just something that explains the purpose of this table. Then you might see that we have this property here or this checkbox for enabling attachments. All you have to do is click that checkbox, and now your colleagues within your business can now add attachments, files, images, documents to whatever um, role that they are making here. Let's just also look at a few of the advanced options. We have the schema name. It's usually your display name with no space, but it's prefixed by a special code. This code is usually one which is set up when you create your Dataverse instance. It's basically there so that it doesn't conflict with other tables that might be the same name when you are ex- exporting and importing them into other environments. So it's unique to your environment, and it makes sure that it doesn't clash with any other table name. You can change that all you want while you're creating the table, but once you have created it, that's it. That is how it will be. Then of course we have the types here. Some of the types we did discuss there. So we're creating a basic standard table here. We also have record ownership. So basically these you can set like sort of permissions for these tables where this table is only meant for usage within your team within the business, or you can choose the second option here where it's for everyone in the organization. So I'll leave that as is. Let's go back to the top and just switch on over to primary column here. So in primary column, this is basically as it said, it's the primary uh, column within your table. It's a unique um, uh, column that uniquely identifies all the other rows from each other. So most of these are usually not the same because obviously you need a way to uniquely identify each of those rows that we have here. So we can of course change this if we would like. We can set that display name. We can maybe say we want the primary name to be device name, and we can change that to there. We have the description here as well. Again, describing what this primary name is, what this primary column is used for, and how to use it. Maybe anything that your colleagues might find um, useful. Again, it also has a schema name to uniquely identify this particular column. Again, device name is not a unique name, as many types of tables might have the same name. So the prefix is there to make sure that it is unique to your environment. You also have the requirement. So you can either leave this as required, which means that you have to have it. You have to have this column with some sort of data for you to create that record, or else you won't be able to make it. Or you can have the first option where you don't have to have it, but we recommend that you might have it. And we also have the option here that, again, you can pretty much guess what that is. It's either you want to put it in or you don't. So I'll leave it as required. And the maximum character counts. Okay, you can control this. In some other data stores, this maximum character count is 4,000. Sometimes if you're a pro dev, you might know that it's you want to make it as 255. No, no matter what you want to do, you can make the maximum character count there, just to limit what users put in there. I'll just leave that as 100. So while we are saving that new table that we're making there, Dico, do you perhaps know of any use cases where you might want to create a custom table?
Yeah, so personally, with what I've just seen when creating a custom table, is that it's so easy to actually enable attachments within the custom table. You just tick a checkbox. So obviously, when I want to create a custom table, like I've mentioned earlier on when we were talking about the creating a custom table, is that I would look at in a case where the standard tables are not really working for me. So for an example, if I want to store something that is probably not available within the standard tables
Sure.
in Dataverse. So for an example, if I probably want to store a timestamp of a specific record within my table, maybe I would create a custom table within Dataverse, because I need that column for a specific reason. And obviously, I might want to use a custom table whenever I'm creating Power Automate flows, or a power app that will be connected with the Power Automate flow, and storing all of this information, either getting it from SharePoint or transferring it from SharePoint to Dataverse.
Makes sense. Makes sense. No, I completely agree with you there. And you've reiterated that these custom tables that you create within Dataverse are used for any specific unique use case that you may find within your business. So just moving along there, now we can see that we have our table created here. As you can see, that's your asset order there. There is your first column there. If you go to the very top of this under the new tab, just click on new, and this is how we can create columns. Again, just to reiterate, we've created the table, we've enabled attachments, and we've also configured a few other properties that we haven't covered, but it's just good to see how some of those properties work. So with the new column, we already have device name. Let's go for manufacturer, right? We have manufacturer here. Of course, we can describe that. And then we have something called data type. And this is a very interesting property that we have here, because this sort of sets the boundaries for the type of data that your colleagues can input into this table. So for manufacturer, we want to keep that as text, right? We know that they will have a text. It's a single line of text. It can either be Acer or HP or whatever manufacturer you have there. Um, so we want to keep that as text. And then, of course, we have the required property here. If you want to leave that as optional. And I think for now, let's just leave that as is. And then we click on save. So save then brings that column right into our table there. Let's go ahead and add another column. And for this, I just want to just basically go through the various types or data types you can apply per column. So let's go back here. Let's open some of these. So we have number, right? Text. Text is for all names, words, things, basically that do not contain or actually, it can contain numbers. It'll just be saved as a text data type. So you can input numbers there. But for the actual number, this stores it as, like I said, an actual number. If you store a number in a text property, you might not be able to do things like calculations and that sort of thing. So if you know that it's a very calculation heavy app, you might want to store your numbers as actual number properties. You also have date and time, right? So again, um, we have mentioned that you might want to have some sort of timekeeper app. You want to make note of the dates and time that things are happening, that people are checking in. You can then go ahead and use that date and time property. This also expands into if you want both date and time or just only. It's totally up to you. We have lookups, we have choices, we have currency, we have a whole lot of different data types which serve specific functions in your app. For example, the choice, if you have a choice, you can either have a yes or no, or what you can do is if I click on choice and I want to create a custom choice for this table alone. A global choice allows you to use the specific choice for all other tables within your Dataverse instance. For here, let's say I want to name the specific choice, let's say device type, and then I go ahead and okay, what do I want to have as my types? I can have a laptop, right? And then I'll explain value in a bit. I can have a notebook, and I can also have a tablet. So I can have these choices under device type so that when I'm creating this asset order in my Power App or through a flow in Power Automate, I'm able to select what type of device I am ordering. So as you can see, we have label, we have value. The value is a way for you to identify each of those choices. Maybe as you are doing certain functions within Power Apps, you want to do some sort of match or anything like that. It's just a nice way to identify almost like a primary value to uniquely identify any of those choices for when you're doing things like comparisons inside of your Power App. So again, lots of different data types. There's so many to choose from. Um, so yeah, we can be here for hours just explaining those data types alone. So let's just save that because we have already created that. And again, you can add as many columns as you want um, to do as many functions as you would like within your business. And once you have that table inside of Dataverse, you can then go and do anything with it. You can either create a Power App from it. You can import that into a Power App. You can import data from an Excel sheet into the table as well. You can use that in a flow. Maybe when a new record is created, it triggers some flow that sends your manager an email that says, the possibly, like you can do so many things with this Dataverse table. And again, uh, for the scope of this particular module, I think we'll just leave it there. Um, and there's so many different resources that are out there that can show you just what to do when you have a Dataverse table.
Yeah. So, Homo, I actually just went through some comments there and I saw, I think JR asked a question with Bruno on the chat as well about what UI are we actually using here. So, would you mind just to reiterate again on really what exactly are we using to actually build and create our custom table?
What UI?
Yeah, so he or she was asking about the user interface or where exactly are we creating our custom table. So I think that's what they were asking to understand the platform where we're really creating our custom table because it seemed like they're not really familiar with the UI.
Yeah, so this is within the, like I said at the very beginning. Let me just go back a few steps here. I logged into the Power App Studio by going to make.powerapps.com. Dataverse is one of many data sources that we can use within Power Apps. There's a SharePoint list, there's Azure SQL, there's so many different dataverses, or sorry, data stores that we can use within Power Apps. Dataverse is the only, to my understanding, the only data store that is built inside of Power Apps. So it's native to Power Apps. It gets some of the latest features. So all the data is then stored inside of the Power App Studio or the Power Platform, so to speak. And because of that, it is supported by the security of the M365 cloud and the Azure cloud. So if you're worried about where your data is or whether or not it's safe, wherever you have created it, if you trust in the Microsoft 365 cloud, then you can trust wherever Dataverse is, wherever your data is stored inside of Dataverse. So again, make.powerapps.com, you go to home, you go to Dataverse tables, and all your tables will be accessed inside of this section here, this tables section here, across your solutions inside of this particular environment. Like I said earlier on, you can also export these tables. If you create a really complex table and you want to use it in another environment, a common use case for that is over here. I'm in my dev in environment, so I'm just testing something, and I really like how it works. I can then export that and import that into my actual live in environment to have that to use it there. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, definitely. Make.powerapps.com is definitely the place where you can actually find Dataverse and be able to create your own custom tables if you do not want to use the standard tables that are already there and the other different table types that Homo touched on when he was doing the presentation just now. So, yeah, I hope JR that really answers your questions and you actually understand what UI we're actually using for this demo because make.powers.com is actually where we are doing all of this awesome stuff.
Yeah, and also, and this is for everyone else watching. If there's any other questions you might have, our Twitter usernames are actually on the screen right now, so you can connect with us on Twitter, send us a message, tweet us, ask us any questions, and we'll be able to answer them directly for you.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously right now we're moving over to actually understanding more about creating table types, creating custom tables within Dataverse to licensing. Obviously, when you build something within the Power Platform or within Microsoft Power Apps, is that you need to understand the licensing requirements for that specific product. So obviously, when you create a Power App, you need to understand the licensing requirements for Power Apps, and even with Power Automate, you need to understand the licensing requirements for Power Automate as well. So that is also the case here for table types within Dataverse. So that you can be able to take advantage of the different capabilities that are existing within these different table types. So our table types, just to reiterate a little bit, are those standard table types, complex tables, and restricted tables, right? And also the activity tables and virtual tables. So what are the license requirements for those table types, right? So obviously, as it is explained in unit 1 of the learn module, is that complex and restricted table types or tables require additional licensing. So obviously, what you see on the screen, for an example, standard and custom tables would require the Microsoft 365 license, the per app plan, per user plan, Dynamics 365. Whereas complex tables require the per user plan, the Dynamics 365 plan. So obviously, like I just mentioned now, complex and restricted tables require additional licensing. So obviously, when you got your, let's say for an example, you got your license, M365 license, and you are able to actually create apps or Power Apps and Power Automate flows within Dataverse or within Power Apps, what you can do then is that you need additional licensing for complex tables and restricted tables. Right. Obviously, we've been talking again for quite a lot, and you've seen what's been going on. Again, we need to test the knowledge for you guys and what you actually learned from this. So it's time for a knowledge check.
Yes, one more knowledge check. Let's see what those questions are. I believe this is the second one. So the question that we have is, which of the following statements about restricted tables is false? So three of these answers are true, one is false. A, we have customers can add restricted tables to Dataverse. Um, that seems like something that could be possible. I don't know. What do you think, Dico?
Yeah, definitely. I think A is quite possible for this. Also, I think as well, the restricted table, which is option C, restricted table accompanied by advanced logic, would be the answer. I'm not too sure though. I wonder what everyone else thinks about this question. What do they think the answer is?
Yeah, go ahead and put in those votes into the polls. Let's see what everyone is thinking. Um, and the answer for this particular question is A, is customers can add restricted tables to Dataverse. This is something that is definitely not true in two ways: that this is a customer. If you're talking about external customers, they cannot do this as well. And even if you are talking about your colleagues within your business, they need to have certain licensing to even use and update, create, edit any of these restricted tables. So A is definitely the right answer here, or in this case, it is false. Customers cannot add restricted tables to Dataverse.
Yeah, definitely. That's really eye-opening for me. I really thought it was C. Again, another like really I would like to give advice for people who are actually doing this knowledge check with us, and obviously for people who are thinking about taking certifications as well. So that you need to really pay attention to what the question is. Obviously here it says which of the following statements about restricted tables is false, whereas I just thought it was asking about which of the following statements about restricted tables is true. So now I got the answer wrong, but it was actually looking for the wrong answer in the first place, and I gave the correct one. So each and every single time when you are doing those questions and this knowledge check with us, make sure that you read the question correctly. So obviously, we can't stop there. We need to double check more on the knowledge that we just gave you. So
Let's
we
do
have a
one
third
more.
question. Yeah, we have a third question. Let's do one more.
Yeah, so with question 3, we have, with a P2 license in Dataverse, you can use and access any table except which of the following? Right. Could it be A, standard tables? Could it be B, restricted? C, certain tables that contain complex logic? Or D, custom tables? So, which of these can you use and access, or which of these cannot you use and access with a P2 license?
Hmm.
What do you
That's
think
that.
there?
Yeah, that's a really tricky question. I think we actually just touched on licensing right now, where we were just talking about additional licenses for specific table types. So I think I'd actually go with D, maybe custom tables.
And you know what? I think with licensing, it's an issue that everyone wants to know, especially if your business is small or large or medium size. It's a tricky topic for most people. So I
Yeah,
think it's very crucial to understand the types of licensing you may need, especially when you're creating some of these apps for your own business.
yeah,
So
definitely.
you say it is C. Let's see what the actual answer is.
It's
Right.
B.
So the answer is actually B. Yes, for sure. With the P2 license, you can use and access standard, custom, and complex tables which contain complex logic, server side logic, and all of that. Because with restricted tables, you may need some additional licensing options that pertain to Dynamics 365 applications.
Oh yeah, I don't know if that rings a bell to everyone else that's actually joining in with the session. That just a few minutes ago, I mentioned that for restricted and complex tables, you need additional licensing so that you can be able to use them within Dataverse. So obviously, Homo just touched on the very same thing when we are explaining what the actual answer is and why the answer is correct. Right. So obviously we've been talking and we've been doing all of these knowledge checks, and I really, really like the engagement that we are getting from the polls. So obviously now the next step is to actually understand what we've been talking about, the entire summary of the things that we spoke about. So for an example, we touched on the tables within Dataverse. What are tables within Dataverse and the table types? Like I mentioned to you earlier on, these tables are similar to us storing data when we are using the everyday tables from an Excel spreadsheet or a SQL server for a specific application or solution that we are building. So again, we touched on tables in Dataverse now and how we can actually create a custom table, which we saw Homolemo actually going through a very, very detailed and nice walkthrough of that demo where we saw how to create a table and also enabling attachments within a table. So obviously we can do more with a custom table that we're actually building. Right. Again, we also understood which licensing requirements to apply to each, to use or to apply to each type of table that we find in Dataverse, right? We just touched on it even now when we're doing the knowledge check, where we said restricted and complex tables require additional licensing. And obviously, licensing is something that everyone needs to properly understand which kind of licensing would they need whenever they want to build solutions that involve Dataverse, Power Apps, or Power Automate. This has been quite a learning journey for me with the learning objectives that we've been doing today, being walked through the tables, creating a custom table, the different types of tables within Dataverse, and enabling attachments within a custom table. So, Homo, I don't know if you would like to chime in and actually give us an experience or your experience on those learning objectives that we actually covered today.
Yeah, no, it's been a great session in Indeed. And of course, the learning does not stop there. All of this is available on Microsoft Learn. Everything that we've covered in this order, in this particular module, if you just access the link on which is on screen now, or you can scan the QR code. This will take you to the module that we've just done. But if you want to further that learning and just go more in depth with Dataverse, you can also check out the overall learning path that this module is a part of, as well as other topics pertaining to the Power Platform or .NET or any other technology that you're interested in on Microsoft Learn.
Right. So thanks again, Homo, for actually co-hosting this session with me. I want to actually urge everyone that's watching to not miss out. Obviously, this episode that we're having today is the first episode of a 5 episode series where I don't want you to miss out the second episode that we're actually going to have, that is talking about enhancing IoT solution security by using Azure Defender for IoT. Again, just like how we did this session, based off a learn module, the next session as well, or the upcoming sessions actually on this 5 parts series, are going to be covering learn modules that you are going to find within Microsoft Learn. So be sure not to miss out the sessions. You can either actually click on the link or use the link that you see on the screen. Both of those links, one of the link is actually a calendar invite so that you can be able to just RSVP and put it in your calendar so that you can be able to join the session, and the other will take you to the list of the different sessions that we are going to have following this one. Or you have the option to actually use the QR codes that we actually have on the screen and scan them, which will play a similar role to the links. Again, it has been such a great honor to bring this wonderful knowledge to you and the different capabilities that you can have whenever you are creating tables or using Dataverse so that you can build solutions. And it's been a great honor hosting alongside Homo Lemo. Homo, any last words?
No, thank you very much. I really like doing these sessions for anyone who is interested. As some people may know, I'm very much passionate about the Power Platform in general. So again, our Twitter handles are on screen. Please reach out. Please ask us any questions you might have, and we will be sure to engage with you as much as possible. So until next time, thank you so much, guys.